The show A Docile Body was actually influenced by Fuku's book called Discipline and Punish, The Birth of a Prison. And in that book, he actually uses the term docile bodies, which is actually a group of people that are used to being watched and surveyed to the point that their behavior and their discipline becomes internalized and they're not able to resist anymore. So in this modern age where social media has become heavily apparent and present, we rely it to communicate, to exchange information in this presence of a crowd. And in some ways, it's almost like a performative act where when we acknowledge the viewers and the people that are watching us, our behavior becomes somewhat tailored to the masses, and we subconsciously aim to appeal and impress other people. Yet, to an extent, to the people that are participating in social media, we ourselves become docile bodies. And yet, if we truly question and who actually puts power to these people that are watching us and to portray ourselves in a certain manner, it's actually just ourselves. So we ourselves become vulnerable to our own self-judgment, critical to how much we eat, how much we rest, and our surroundings as well. So we kind of create this lingering tension between ourselves. So in these paintings, I actually use my body in a way, I use my body as someone who's 20 years old, someone within 20s witnessing these sentiments, and someone to narrate this modern terror. And the use of doppelgangers are actually, I use doppelgangers to further enhance that. And these two figures kind of play this sense of dynamic between prey and predator. So where one version is actually seen in a state of rest, and then the other in like a state of rest in everyday living. And then unbeknownst to her that there is someone that is watching within their peripheral gaze. And avoidance of all privacy and vulnerable to judgment and criticism. While the other is actually seen in more in clarity and is somewhat like an intrusion or a haunting presence, hovering and still in these intimate spaces of sleep, eating, rest, showering, and even mourning. So between these two characters, there is like an unsettling silent tension, sometimes enhanced by the use of color blocking, as well as like severe division of spaces, which can be from like stairs, windows, bed frames. So that divides the interior spaces as well as the exterior spaces. And when I started this project, it was actually during the height of the pandemic, where a lot of us was isolated at home, and one of our ways of escapism, well, for me, was like social media. And it was then that I felt that there was no boundaries between somewhat like the outside world and the inside world, where people could easily access or can access social media through your bedroom, toilet, and everything. And so that's why a lot of these things, or a lot of the settings here, was actually based on a house. As for social media, I always appeared of it, or always seen as it as somewhat like a jungle or a forest, where it's somewhat limitless yet extremely picturesque in its way. We're unable to see what is there or how far it goes, and it's almost, and whenever there is someone there, it's almost mostly camouflaged. So that's why it inspired me to make one of these paintings called like My Inner Intruder. So when approaching the painting, you realize the vines, yet not noticing that there's another individual in between there and lurking in between. Hence, like the audience becomes like participants in this play, and actually empathize with the individuals that are being preyed upon. Also, I've created other works. On the table over there, I have more early works that were based upon selfies. When I first started coming back, once I graduated, there was some sort of uncertainty as an artist and what was next to come after graduation. And in a way, selfies or self-portraits were a way to claim that of my existence. But like as an artist painting myself, it becomes more of an acclamation that I am an artist. And I guess it's like a modern take of how during the Renaissance period, they would have these self-portraits made to be done to acknowledge themselves and their existence. So what I did on a weekly basis was create selfies of myself to then show that I am an artist. And I guess it is fitting that my first solo show shows as well self-portraits of myself.